Hi, Michelle. It's
Hello,
great to see you
Amy.
today.
Good to see you.
I'm so excited about our conference this week. I know that you and I are very passionate about connective care and specifically this theme of engagement, what a difference that makes to ensuring good quality of services and effective services to both direct service recipients as well as to our organization. So I'm excited to talk with you today about your topic of building trust.
Amy, I really think trust is key to engagement. It is the foundation. And
Mhm.
sometimes when we're engaging service recipients, if we think of it from their perspective, they don't really have a lot of reason to trust us.
Right.
And so I think anything we can do to help build that trust is going to make our programs, our services more effective.
Agree. I think often we go into homes, we feel, as a provider, we feel comfortable
Mhm.
with helping to explore the situation or thinking we're coming in with solutions, and forgetting how it might feel from the other side to try to build trust with a stranger who's getting to know you, who's trying to problem solve a personal situation with you that they may not fully even realize they don't understand. So
Right.
certainly many barriers that we need to keep in mind and find ways to overcome.
And one of the ways I want to look at the barriers is based on needs. And I want to talk first about a little bit about how trust is built just
Mhm.
within human attachment and human relationships. I know you're doing a presentation about bids and responses. So
Correct.
you'll go into that topic a lot deeper than I will. But I just want to do a real quick overview and take a look at how we form trust as human beings.
Mhm.
We're probably all familiar with the attachment cycle. Baby has a need. Baby expresses that need, and usually this is by crying. A caregiver responds to that need, and if the response is consistent and effective, trust develops. And this cycle repeats itself not just in infancy, but throughout human development. The needs change, and we learn different ways to express our needs, but the cycle continues. These same cycles are sometimes referred to as serve and return. A child expresses a need for interaction, and a caring adult responds. This is how trusting relationships grow. These types of interactions are seen not just in parent-child relationships. Relationship coaches sometimes refer to them as bids, but they exist in personal relationships, work relationships, and even customer-client relationships. But it's not always as simple as playing catch. Infants have no other choice but to be vulnerable and express their needs. But when we're engaging adults or even older children, that's not the case. We need to create safe spaces for responsive interactions, and we need to do it in the context of their existing worldview. Our past relationships and experiences shape our perception of what I need, when I need it, how I prefer to get it met, and who I should trust. Unfortunately, services are often focused on an assumption that we know what people need and what they need to do. And this can be a barrier to trust and engagement.
Michelle, I really appreciated your last slide because I do think this is just human nature that, when we are engaging with someone, um, we don't understand their perspective or even know to take a different perspective at times. And our own experiences are informing us and what we believe somebody might need more
Right.
of or less of. And really have to take a back seat and allow their experiences and the fact that they know themselves best to come through.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's actually the nature of the work we do we are all natural problem solvers, and we've formed programs to solve needs that we think are out there, and we make a lot of assumptions about how best to do it. We're the ones deciding how best to meet other people's needs, and that's all well intended, but sometimes that can create a barrier to actually being able to engage. We really do need to focus on listening and allowing other people to talk about what their needs are and how they feel those needs should be met. And that's really an underlying foundation, I think, for building trust.
I agree. Sometimes it really comes back to simple things that we overlook. Asking someone the questions and allowing space for the answers and really listening to understand and not listening to respond. Because we can sometimes get in the way of that.
So this activity that we're going to be doing today, Amy, and you guys have the handout, the participants have the handout they can download and follow along. But it is what I would like you to do is think about all who you want to engage. So this could be, if you're a service provider, this could be just the population that you're engaging. You can apply this to employee engagement. You can think about just big picture, your organization, how do they engage service recipients? Or you can think about it more one-on-one. If you're a teacher, maybe how do you engage children in the classroom? I really think this is applicable to a lot of different things. Absolutely. Because we're talking about universal needs, that these are intrinsic motivators, universal needs that we all have in order to feel safe.
Right.
And build that trust. So we're creating that space in which trust can be built. So if you could download that handout and follow along as I go over these different human needs.
To create safe spaces for responsive interactions, it's helpful to understand 3 universal human needs. These 3 needs come from decades of research done by Deci and Ryan. Now, Deci and Ryan refer to these 3 as intrinsic motivators. They're intrinsic motivators because they're what we need to feel safe. And in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, safety comes first. The first is autonomy. Sometimes called agency, autonomy is the need to have a sense of an internal locus of control in your life. The second is belonging, and this is about inclusivity and connection. And that can include family, groups, communities, or even feeling like we belong to humanity. Competency is about having the resources to navigate life. It's also about growth and healing. So let's break down these 3 needs or intrinsic motivators as they relate to engagement. Remember, as I go through each one, I want you to think about the ways that you or your program or organization can meet these needs, but also try to identify ways that you create barriers to these needs. One of the ways that we can meet the need for autonomy is through choice. Now, choice is having viable options and the freedom to pick the one you think is best. We might believe that we offer choice in our programs, but it's important to remember that when there's an unbalanced power dynamic, choice might not be perceived the same by both parties. So an example of that is if you have a voluntary program, it might not feel voluntary if it's suggested by your employer or even an agency that has power over you or your family's well-being. So it's something to keep in mind. In what ways do we hinder choice or perception of choice in our programs? What opportunities can we create for choice? And what options do we need to highlight or clarify for our service recipients? A second way we can meet the need for autonomy is through voice. Voice is the need to have a say in decisions that impact us. And this means not just asking for input and feedback, but involving people in decisions. We all know how disengaging it can feel to share our opinion and realize it's disregarded. So what decisions do we make without input? Do we create solutions without listening to our service recipients' perception of what's needed? How can we make sure to involve service recipients in the decisions that affect them most? The third way we meet the need of autonomy is through boundaries. Now, boundaries are the ability to say yes and to say no. The limits we set to keep ourselves safe and to keep ourselves functioning. What ways do we breach boundaries with our service recipients? What opportunities can we make to demonstrate that we respect their boundaries?
Michelle, I really have always valued the importance of service recipients, having voice and choice in services they participate and how they go about participating, and that there's really room for both services that need to be done or completed, while also allowing opportunity for that to be representative of what that family uniquely needs, or how they need to go about doing the service or participating in a service. Just that respect, that's really important to building that trust and making sure that whatever they're participating in helps accomplish whatever goals or problem they're trying to solve.
Right. I even think about, Amy, in the work that I've done in the past, when we do things like genograms and with families, how often we're asking them to not have very healthy boundaries in a sense, or to have by sharing all of that personal information. And I think it's so important to give them the opportunity to say yes or no.
Absolutely.
And not in model those healthy boundaries, and also make sure that we're not crossing them. And I think it's also important to remember that when we're talking about boundaries, people don't always express themselves clearly. Sometimes there's messy ways we express that somebody's crossed our boundary. Like we avoid them, or we shut down, or maybe we even get angry. And we have to be able to interpret those as somebody communicating a boundary, even if it's in a messy way, and ask ourselves, did I just cross this person's boundary?
Right.
And
I really like that activity, the opportunity to kind of slow our own self down and be thoughtful about how we are building trust or not building trust, or barriers that we create, to be purposeful about how we move forward as professionals, or as running a program.
Right. So, Amy, now let's take a look at some different ways that we can meet the need of belonging.
Remember, belonging is about inclusivity and connection, and that can include families, groups, communities, or humanity itself. One way to meet the need of belonging is through validation. Our experiences and emotional responses can sometimes feel isolating. Validation is the assurance that what we experience is real and that they are shared. We're not alone. Just putting the names to emotions not only helps us to process by assimilating the feelings into a context, but when our emotions and experiences are reflected, it helps us to feel more connected. What things do we do that are not validating when we first engage? How can we create more openings for reflective listening or other validating experiences? Another way we can meet the need of belonging is through affirmation. And when we talk about affirmation, specifically, we're talking about affirmation or recognition for contributions, our identity, and our resiliency. What things do we do Or what opportunities have we missed for affirmations? How do we genuinely create occasions for affirmation in the work we do, particularly when we're engaging? The final thing we can do to create belonging is affiliation, or making sure that we're validating that need for affiliation. Beyond just belonging to humanity, people need to have other affiliations without being excluded from the group. So, what ways do we often discount others for their affiliations? So, I want you to think about this. What way do we discount other important relationship connections? What ways do we overtly or inadvertently exclude others because of their affiliations? And how do we welcome and encourage those connections?
Covering validation, every person, has a unique desire to feel validated and have that sense of belonging, and really being thoughtful about how we sometimes pass judgment on affiliations is important.
I think about in child welfare, oftentimes we tell people who they can and cannot see. And I understand there's safety reasons sometimes for that, but we do it often without regard to what they're getting from that, from that affiliation.
And my hope would always be that we also are teaching skills on how to, for example, if it was around safety, how to keep a child or someone safe. So it's not always about putting boundaries in place as to who you can and can't affiliate with, but if you are going to be around that situation, how can you learn skills to ensure someone stays safe,
And affiliations aren't always about, not just about people. Sometimes it's more about your identity,
absolutely,
and who you align your values with.
Right.
And we need to be careful that we're not sending the message that your affiliations can exclude you from belonging.
Absolutely.
So let's take a look at some of the ways we can meet the need of competency.
Remember, competency is about having the resources to navigate life, and it's also about growth and healing. Supporting our need for competency while we're engaging means promoting self-efficacy. Now, self-efficacy is the belief that we can achieve something. And so this includes both a growth mindset and also instilling hope. It's the belief that we all have the capacity to learn and grow, and that we don't have to remain stuck. The opposite of a growth mindset is a fixed mindset. That's the belief that people can't change, that their basic qualities like their talent or intelligence or other characteristics are just fixed traits. What ways do we demonstrate a fixed mindset, or that belief that people can't change or grow? In what ways can we instill hope? How can we use hope-inspiring language, like putting the problem in the past or using the word yet, in order to both instill hope and to demonstrate that we have a growth mindset? Transparency is another way to encourage competency. Now, to successfully navigate life, we need information. But we need the right information at the right time. Transparency gives clarity to the bigger picture and allows someone to choose what information they need. Without transparency, a party knowledge comes in the form of lecture or unsolicited advice, and rarely is it well received. I like to think of it this way. Imagine if you were wearing a blindfold. It would be helpful for someone to tell you what direction to walk. Maybe even more helpful for them to describe what is in front of you. But it would be most helpful if they actually remove the blindfold. And that's transparency. It's providing that sense of clarity so others can choose their own way. What ways do we fail to be transparent? And how could we share more, or what could we share to be more transparent? The last thing that's necessary in order to achieve competency or to meet the need of competency is we need to be able to learn from our mistakes. Failure is an important element of learning. In fact, we learn faster by failing than we do by succeeding. It's why pilots train in flight simulators, because 1 hour in a simulator is more effective than 100 hours of flying. And the reason for that is because they can safely fail and learn from their mistakes in a simulator. So how do we create the context where people can learn and grow and learn from their mistakes? What ways do we send the message that mistakes are not okay? And how do we create those safe opportunities to learn from our mistakes?
Michelle, I really appreciated your example about transparency and the bandana. Again, sometimes we come in with solutions that aren't even the solution that someone would set for themselves, and
Right.
being able to hear their perspective and be transparent about ideas that can contribute to problem solving.
Yeah. Transparency is so crucial for trust in any relationship. And I think you can relate this to employee engagement. As you know, I think
Absolutely.
this is applicable to a lot of different things,
Mhm.
because these are universal needs. So
Right.
it's not just about a client. It
Yeah.
would apply to any kind of relationship or any kind of group you're trying to engage.
Yeah, I definitely think in the workplace, you're often going to have more buy-in from your employees or from your colleagues and coworkers if there's transparency regarding what needs to get done and why it needs to get done, or why the data is important, for example. If there's more buy-in with understanding, you're more likely to get further, but that does require transparency.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. That's all very helpful information. I really appreciate the importance of slowing down and building trust and really giving thought to the importance of transparency and voice and choice. So I really appreciated this module. What would be a takeaway that you would like our participants to think about as they move forward in these universal human needs in their own programs or in their own industries?
Well, I think it's just, I hope they see it as an opportunity to kind of look at what are some just small things I can do differently, to remove those barriers
Mm-hmm.
or to create that safe space. And I think, this could be an activity that hopefully people can take back to their agencies with their coworkers and maybe sit down and talk about, go through these needs and those specific, as I broke them down, what can we do differently? What can we do
Right.
better? It's all about just the slight little tweaks that we can do to improve our programs, to improve our agencies, even improve our skills as individuals engaging people. I think that's what I would hope that people would take away from this.
I really appreciate that recommendation, because I think those types of conversations are what leads to more long-term systemic change or procedural changes if colleagues or leadership, everyone comes together to enact those changes. So that's great. Well, thank you for sharing your wealth of knowledge with us today. And I'm hopeful that there's been some great information here that our participants can take away with building trust.
Yeah, and if tomorrow on day 2, I'm going to be, the session that I will be presenting will give some ideas of specific activities we can use to
Wonderful.
create these spaces.
Okay. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.